And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live number 27. 27, guys. We are steaming ahead with these live sessions. And as I've said before, for this month, for November, for the remainder of November, I'm going to be going live every day to do one of these little sessions because I love you guys a lot and it's a lot of fun. And also because my course, Charisma and Dating Academy, which is what the whole stream is named after, that's what CAD stands for, is going to be coming out on the 1st of December. And so in the run up to that, I'm going to be going live every day. We're going to be talking about lots of different issues around dating, attraction, and particularly the journey from being somebody who is very reticent, kind of shy, kind of finds it very hard to maybe to socialize, to learning how to handle those things, to then becoming somebody who is effective as a social animal and starts to get dates and starts to get some traction with the opposite sex, okay? Because that's the journey that I undertook myself, and that's what I teach in my system in CAD Academy. So the CAD system is charisma plus attitude plus differentiation equals attraction. And it's a system that will take you from Chode to Chad in a very short space of time. So that's really what the course is all about. I've just had a little technical hitch there. Hold on one second. Sorry. Okay. My DJ Journey, thank you for tuning in, says, what about Movember? Well, I was kind of getting there. With the moustache, and then I just lopped it off earlier. I don't know why. I just kind of felt like it. So apologies for that. Maybe we can catch up again later in the month. AC from KC says, I want to join your program. Thank you very much, sir. More than welcome. I will be seeding out more details about that in the coming weeks. So keep your eyes peeled to this channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. The other thing to say on that is to get on my free daily email list. So there's a link to that in the description, sending out emails every day with a little article in it. And there'll also be news on the course in that. And then Nico says, gender exists only to reproduce and try not to have ugly kids, or it's better to just not date. Well, he's got a point, hasn't he? Who wants ugly kids, right? You know, we want to have beautiful offspring for sure. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is a bit more of the old do looks matter type thing. And the reason that I'm talking about this really is just to give a bit of context, is because fundamentally there's this whole schism, isn't there, in this space between whether people think that dating advice works or other people who think it's just a scam and it's all nonsense. And the only things that count are your looks and your height, and maybe as a second, you know, your status and your money, and that's it. And so if you don't have the looks, you don't have the height, then, you know, you're not going to gain any traction in the dating world. And that's what a lot of these black pill guys believe, okay? Obviously, I'm on the other side of the fence from that because I am somebody who writes about dating extensively, who writes about relationships, who's an observer of human relationships. And I've also coached guys as well. You know, I don't particularly like to characterize myself as a dating coach, but it's certainly something that I do. It's certainly something that I have done. And obviously it's something I do through CAD Academy, which really is a mentorship program. Ultimately, it's me mentoring a group of guys and helping them to get a handle on this stuff, you know, on this part of their lives. So yeah, with all that being said, I think it's kind of important to focus on this thing about looks sometimes, because when you think about guys in the journey from being very reticent to go and date and finding dating very intimidating and finding women very intimidating, that part of the journey often at that point, and this is my experience, guys will be very concerned about the way that they look. And it's very easy at that early part of the journey to get bogged down in this thing about looks to the point that you don't bother to do any self-development, that you don't bother to look at yourself and to look at yourself, you know, physically, but also in terms of your mental health, in terms of your confidence, in terms of the way that you come across. You don't bother to even address any of that stuff because you've bought into this notion that the only thing that really matters is how you look. And if you've lost out on that, or if you believe that you've lost out on that, then you've fallen at the first hurdle and you might as well do nothing except sit around and complain on the internet. Okay. So there's a lot of nuance in this area, and it really isn't as simple and straightforward as some people would have you believe. And what I want to focus on today is the idea that looks are the great panacea that will just get you everything that you want. Okay. So within the mythology, if you like, of the black pill, within the mythology of people who have this worldview, is embedded the notion that the Chad, that is to say the good-looking guy, just has to rock up and kind of not really do anything, and women are just going to fall at his feet. And in contrast to that, the loser or the incel or the, you know, whatever, the black pill adherent or however you want to characterize that guy, he can't get a break. Whatever he does, he is going to get rejected. And the other guy pretty much just has to rock up and it's open season. You know, he's just like, hey girls, here I am. I'm Chad, former Q. And actually, that's not the case. That's not the case. And here's the thing. Looks are important, yes. And we've always acknowledged that. I've certainly always acknowledged that on this chapter. On this channel. And you should absolutely be seeking to improve your looks, to work on your looks, to, you know, to increase the quality of your looks to the greatest extent that you can. But what you have to realize is, and you know, maybe in some ways this is a narrative you wouldn't expect me to say, but what you have to realize is that looks themselves are not enough. I mean, yes, you could be really good looking and that will get you a foot in the door, but if your behavior and the way that you put yourself across doesn't match your looks, then you can still end up getting rejected by girls. So I suppose there's kind of good news and bad news there. On the one hand, if you're watching this and you're a real Chad and you're really good looking, then congratulations. But, you know, you still need to work on your dating skills. You still need to work on your social skills in order to do the next bit, which is to actually attract women, because attraction, remember that CAD formula, charisma plus attitude plus differentiation. That's what equals attraction. Okay. You've still got to work on that stuff. Because if you don't, you may end up getting rejected, even if you're good looking. Okay. Now, I know there's going to be some guys watching this and going, yeah, but, you know, if you're a 4'2" dude with a squint and, you know, some kind of deformity, then, you know, it's game over for you anyway. Well, for a start, I'm not saying that, you know, everybody on the planet, every guy on the planet is going to be able to end up with, you know, a super hot Victoria's Secret girlfriend. That's not realistic. That's not something I've ever promised. I don't believe that's something anybody's promised. I mean, we all have to accept that we're on a certain level with this stuff. And you can certainly improve your purview. You can improve your results. Okay. That's undeniable. The degree to which you improve them is, of course, another matter, and people will quibble about that. But in my book, if you are a guy who is regularly dating, like, you know, girls who are a 2 out of 10, and you're able to change things around a little bit and improve things to the extent that now you're dating a girl who is, and this is all very subjective, but you know what I'm saying, you're now dating a girl who is a 4 out of 10, that's success, right? That's better. That's got to be better than just doing nothing, right? And I believe that all men or nearly all men can do this. And of course, you know, we'll get people coming into the comments and into the chat and quibbling with this and saying, well, no, because what about the guy who's got a hunchback and he's 3 foot tall and he's, you know, I don't know, got a hair lip and all this kind of thing. And it's like, okay, fine. But are you that guy? Are you really that guy? You know, and of course, the issue that we got with these content creators is because they don't share receipts, because they very rarely show us what they actually look like, we can't determine whether they are actually as unattractive as they say they are. And if they're not, then it would suggest that they're not speaking from personal experience. You know, they are creating a narrative. Why are they creating that narrative? Well, because they want to grow their channels. They want to get more eyeballs on them. They want to sell more stuff. You know, some of these people sell books, they sell apps, they sell different things. And you know, they want to make money out of this, right? And it's a very, very good grift, if you like, to tell guys that it's all hopeless. It's all hopeless. You may as well just give up. I mean, that is an easier grift than the dating coach grift when you think about it, because what the dating coach has to do is say, you can get some success, but it's really hard and you have to work for it. And that is, like, to be honest, that's a harder sell. Yeah? You see what I mean? It's a much easier sell just to sit there and go, listen, dude, don't bother doing anything because the game is rigged against you. So instead, just, come into my live streams and we'll sit here and, criticize other people. And, don't worry about it, bro, because you've already lost the game. By the way, buy my book or buy my, application or whatever it is. So as a grift, I would say, actually, if you're looking to gain internet fame and you're looking to gain internet sort of likes and those dopamine hits that you get, it's actually easier, I think, to make that work in your favor than doing the dating coach thing. Because as I say, the dating coach thing is really saying to people, well, listen, you've got to man up. You've got to go to the gym. You've got to do X, Y, and Z. And then you may improve your results by a bit, and as I say, nobody's offering a free lunch here. I don't work with anybody who's saying, well, just follow my 6 steps and, you'll be on a yacht dating Portuguese supermodels. It doesn't, nobody's saying that. What people are saying is you can improve, you can get better results, but you have to put in the work, etc., etc. So anyway, all of that being said, I want to now go into a bit of an example about how even being a good-looking dude, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be successful in the dating arena. And what I want to do is, I was watching a reality show the other night, and I was kind of interested in this particular episode of the show. And I thought that it would be kind of a useful example to share. Now, because this show ran on British television and it's not on YouTube, I don't think that I can actually show you the video, unfortunately, which would have been good, because obviously we could have watched it and commented on some of it. But I don't think that I'm allowed to do that. But what I am able to do is to share some screen grabs with you so I can illustrate a little bit about what was happening and the people that were involved on the show. But what you're going to see in this example, and I'll talk you through what happened. What you're going to see in this example is a guy who is objectively good looking, a guy who is objectively Chad, and certainly compared to the rest of his competition. And you're going to see how he fares in this particular setup scenario. Now, what the scenario is, this is a TV program in the UK, and what I'll do as well, by the way, is I will link to this in the description. So if there are people watching this and you're in the UK, then you'll be able to watch the program here. I think if you're in the EU, you can probably watch it on the ITV player as well. Worldwide, perhaps not. So I'm sorry about that. But as I say, I will put up that link if people are interested to actually watch the episode. But what this is a show called Dinner Dates, and it's a kind of a cheesy reality type show. It's been going for a couple of years here in the UK, a few years. But what the basic setup is that a girl or a guy will be presented with a bunch of menus, like 5 different menus from, strangers of the opposite sex or the same sex if it's a gay episode, who they might want to date, and they have to choose 3 of those menus, not having seen the people, not having seen who the people are that they're gonna go on a date with, and then the 3 that they pick, those 3 people will cook them a meal. So they have to go around to their house. They have to go around to their house. The guy or the girl cooks the meal. They sit down. They kind of have this date, and then afterwards, they score each other. And the person who's picking, so in this case, it's a girl. The girl has to, at the end of the process, say, "All right, so this is the guy out of those 3 that I want to actually go on another date with, where we go to a proper restaurant." Okay, so that's the setup. It's very, very straightforward. It's kind of silly. It's just a bit of fun, whatever. It's a terrible dating show, by the way, if you're looking for results, because I watch it with my girl quite a lot, and that it's very, very rare that anybody actually gets together and stays together as a result of this process, because what they do at the end of the episode, they will say, this is what happened. A month later, did they meet again? Are they seeing each other, or are they just friends, or is there no contact? So they'll tell you at the end what's happened. Okay, so in this particular episode, right, the chooser, or the main protagonist, right, is a girl called Lydia, and she was quite cute. So here we go. Here's a picture of Lydia. You can see she is a young lady, a British young lady. She's about 23, I think. You can see that lovely patriotic Union Jack thing in the background. So she's pretty cute. She's a young woman. She's a brunette. She's got good complexion, good facial features, good teeth, etc., etc. She's slim. Whatever. Kind of quite an attractive young woman. And she is given 5 menus from these 5 random guys to select to go out on a date with. Okay, so who does she have to pick from? Oh, by the way, okay, that's another picture of her there. So you get a full sized view, but you can see that she is quite an attractive young woman. Obviously, looking very nice here in this red skirt and these heels. So this is the this is the selection of guys that she gets to choose from. And I have to say, I feel a little bit sorry for this particular girl. I feel a bit sorry for Lydia, because the selection that she gets is not particularly great, or certainly the first 2 guys are not particularly fantastic. So the 3 guys are called Adam, Arnie, and Ollie. And these are the 3 that she selects. So remember, she'd had 5 menus and she selected 3. This is sight unseen, so she didn't know what these guys looked like or anything. These are the 3 dudes that she ends up with. So she has to go on a date with each of these guys and then decide based on, ostensibly it's based on the food, on the meal, but really it's based on attraction. Who she gets on best with, who she kind of thinks is the hottest or whatever, is the one that she's then going to take on a proper date at the end of the show. All right, so these are the 3 dudes. That is Adam, Arnie, and Ollie. Okay, so this is Adam, right? This is the first guy that she picks. Now, just to give you a little bit of a spoiler here, what we are kind of running up to here is that the first 2 guys are a bit of a washout, but the third guy is pretty good. Okay. But this is the first guy. He's called Adam. He is a self-confessed nerd. He talks about his love of comics. He says, "Oh, I just want to meet a girl. We can go to Comic-Con in San Diego together." He's that kind of dude. You know what I mean? And obviously, judge for yourselves, guys. He's actually not a bad-looking guy, but he is a bit nerdy. He is, if you just look at his facial expression here, he's a bit sort of like self-effacing. He's a bit sort of like, he doesn't have that particularly like sort of bad boy cad kind of look about him by any means. And what happens is that she goes to his house. So she turns up at his house and he answers the door. And as soon as he answers the door, he sees her and she's there in that lovely red skirt and so on. And he's a little bit taken aback because he's like, "Oh, she's quite cute," He's like, "Oh shit, oh damn, I'm gonna have to do this date now with this quite attractive girl who's wearing this really sort of like quite it's fairly suggestive kind of red outfit, I suppose. Not suggestive sexually, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like there's a little bit of like sexuality coming out of this." And he's like, "Oh my god." So she turns up on the doorstep and he sees her. And I wish I could show you the video of this because he's really diffident when he welcomes her in. He kind of goes, "Oh, hi." And then he kind of shifts around like this. And his body language is really bad. He doesn't have that kind of dominant sort of body language that really you would need in order to gain traction with this kind of girl. Okay. So he allows her to come in. He welcomes her in. They go out to the garden. He's poured these drinks, which Rollo says if he drinks the Cosmo, he's disqualified. And indeed, he does. He does drink the Cosmo. So they've got these sort of rather effete-looking drinks. And as you can see from this, it's kind of it's a bit awkward, really. He's going straight into interview style questions. He's going straight into sort of like, oh, so what do you do? That's interesting. Well, I'm a geologist or whatever it is that he does. There's not much vibe in terms of the conversation, and crucially, he doesn't take control of the situation. He doesn't sort of like go in there and kind of like establish any sort of dominance or anything like that. And then what they always do in this show is they sort of like get to know each other a little bit here. And then he says, right, I've got to go into the kitchen now to carry on cooking. So I'll leave you out here for a second, which he does. And then they interview both of them to see what they think. And he goes into the kitchen. They film him in the kitchen, and he's basically saying, "Oh my God, she's amazing. You know, she's just like everything I would have wanted in a date," which is really chody. You know, even from the off, it's just like kind of okay. She's not going to see that until later when she watches the episode. She's not aware that he said it, but that's a bad frame to be coming from, guys. Even if, you know, say you go on a date with a girl from Tinder and she turns up and she is perhaps even better looking than you expected her to be. I know that's an unusual occurrence, but nevertheless, say she is. You don't want to be certainly giving to her the impression that you're like, oh my God, she's so amazing. That is really bad frame, right? Because you want to come across as being the kind of guy, this happens all the time. You know, like it's pretty much every night of the week, plus Sundays, that you've got a girl with a red pencil skirt and high heels coming around to have drinks in your garden. This is just how you roll. Okay. So, you know, and I think what you see when you watch the episode is that his body language and the way that he interacts with her allows this sort of nervousness to seep through. And the fact that he clearly feels himself to be outclassed here in this match, in this pairing. Now, you might say objectively he is, because she's a good-looking girl and, you know, she could probably attract a very high-value male. So, in a sense, he is outclassed, but you don't let that on in the situation. Remember Royce's dictum about the unfathomable self-confidence, unreasonable self-confidence, right? You have the self-confidence even if objectively you don't measure up, right? So what this guy should have been doing was just kind of bossing it and acting like he was the big daddy, even though clearly he isn't. Now, of course, there's a lot of other things that he could do. He could sort out the way that he's dressed. He could sort out the way that he grooms himself, the way that he comes across. I mean, there's lots of different things this guy could do, which obviously he doesn't do because he's not in Cat Academy. But nevertheless, fundamentally, in a date situation like this, you can't show that you're nervous. You can't show that you think the woman is hotter than you. You can't show that you're like, oh my God, if only she picks me, I'll be so happy. You can't have any of that stuff. You've got to make it seem as though this is just par for the course. You meet girls like her every day. It's no big deal. And he falls on those fences, I'm afraid. So they do the date, and then she comes out at the end, and she leaves the house, and they say goodbye, and they have this awkward, like one of those half kiss type things, and she's leaving the house, and then they film her outside, and they film him, and he's basically going, she's pretty much he's looking amazed to the camera, and he's like, she's pretty much my perfect woman, which is quite sweet, but it's not really the frame you want to have. And then they film her, and she's outside going, yeah, nice guy, but I mean, I'm not sure how I feel. He seemed a little bit nervous, and it's just blatantly clear that she just doesn't fancy this guy. She would never ever consider getting intimate with this dude. It's just not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? But she's being polite about it and say, yeah, nice guy. I was impressed with his cooking. You know, it's that consolation prize kind of thing. So he's blown out basically. So he's fallen at the first hurdle. Now, then day 2, she goes on the next date, and this is quite funny actually, because day 2 she goes out with this dude called Arnie. Now Arnie, you can see here. I mean, I'd probably wear something like this to be honest, but like Arnie has at least gone a little bit more differentiated in terms of his look. I mean, he's wearing this quite nice suit jacket. He's got the pocket square. He's got the low V-neck. He's got the red trousers. The funny thing about Arnie is he's actually quite he's slightly camp, actually, and I'm not, I make no comment about that. That's not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but he is slightly. There's something slightly camp about him, but he is a very funny guy. Actually, he's very bouncy. I mean, I don't know how old this guy is. I imagine fairly young, probably in his early, sort of early mid-20s, and he's also quite well spoken. It seems like he's come from sort of like it seems like he's come from quite a well-off background, probably in London. This thing happens in London. And so he's like, oh, hi, kind of thing. And he's got a little bit of that sort of like cheesy kind of fake James Bondy type thing getting on. He cracks open the champagne here. He's doing a little bit of John MLD dog game as well. He's also got a very cute dog, which she really likes and, kind of falls in love with and everything. So, and they've got some chat as well. Over the dinner table, there is some chat, there's a little bit of a vibe there, and at the end, he is sort of like, because at the end, he's saying goodbye to her at the door, and he's a bit like, all right, see you Friday then, meaning just assuming that she's going to pick him as being the winner of this competition. And all of that is pretty good, actually. That's kind of more like how you should be, because, you want to have that confidence. You want to have that confidence that shows that you just expect her to pick you. Regardless, it doesn't matter how realistic that is or not. It doesn't matter if she wouldn't sleep with this guy in a month of Sundays. That's not really the point. The point is you want to own it like you are the man. And if you're not owning it like you're the man, then you're going to get rejected. You're just going to get kicked to the curb. But their date is a lot less awkward. I mean, as I say, there's something slightly sort of effete about this guy a little bit. I mean, not in a bad way, but that would be the only comment that I would make. But nevertheless, his frame is pretty good. He's quite eccentric. He's wearing some fairly, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what he's wearing, but he's certainly dressing up a bit, which is better than the other dude. And he has banter with her when they're at the table, which again is good. And he's got that like slightly cocky, funny kind of vibe about him. So so this guy does better. But and then at the end, he basically shuts the door on her, and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm definitely in there, lads," kind of thing. Which again is quite funny. I quite admire that. It's that cockiness. It's that sort of like, I mean, it's probably faux. I'm not saying he genuinely thinks it, but it's that kind of jocularity that I always use, which is a bit like, "Hey guys, she's gonna pick me. There's no doubt about it," kind of thing. Maybe nonsense, but that doesn't really matter. You're gonna be in a better position to get picked if you've got that attitude than if you haven't. If you're like the first guy, Adam, you're very self-effacing and everything. So this guy is cocky. He's a bit vain. He's arrogant, but he's also funny. And then when they're interviewing her outside, she says, yeah, like he was funny. It would be hard for anybody not to like him. She then sort of says, if I had to choose between him and his dog, I might choose the dog because the dog was very cute. But nevertheless, this one goes a bit better. And I actually did think, as the show was going on, I actually did think that perhaps she might even pick this guy. It would be a slightly left field choice, but nevertheless. Anyway, we continue. So then, final evening, we have Mr. Ollie, Chad McChadderson. Now, of the three, this dude is the most Chad, okay? He is tall. He's got the good bone structure. He's got the good jawline. You jawline guys out there, you jawline maxes out there who are watching this. He's got the good jawline. You can see good head of hair, nice, good beard. I guess there's some body maxes out there who'd be saying he's not big enough, but he's in good shape. He's also quite tall. He's taller than the other two guys as well, and he's certainly taller than her. So this guy is quite well put together. And she says, almost as soon as she meets him, she says, yeah. She says he opens the door to her, and then they cut to her, and she says, yeah. So he's tall. He's ticked that box. And she says he's also more manly than the other two. She says, I sense that he's older, and he's more manly than the other two. And she said, I'm definitely excited to get to know this guy. So there's something very telling there. And that is that she really focuses on that manly thing. And I think that's probably where our last guy fell down, because while I think actually his chat and his kind of shtick was pretty cool, his manliness was perhaps lacking, maybe only because he was younger, and this is the other thing as well. If you're a doomer and you're 25 or 21, you do have to recognize that as you get older, it does start to get easier simply because you sort of become more manly as you get older. Now, I don't know how old this dude is, but let's say late 20s or maybe even 30 or early 30s, like just naturally you start to become more masculine. You start to become more alpha, in inverted commas, as you get older, which is a good thing. And women respond to that. And we see this very clearly in the interaction that she has with him. But unfortunately, things start to go wrong because, and I could tell this as soon as he answers the door. Like, I think, oh, this guy's pretty good looking. It looks like this dude's gonna like ace it. And then especially after what she says, and then they sit down to have dinner that he's cooked. But the alarm bells had started ringing for me because, again, well, actually, in the establishing shots of him where they're kind of interviewing him before he goes into the date, one of the first things he says is, my friends say that I'm a really nice guy. My friends say I'm really caring. And I'm like, oh God, this is not gonna play well. And when he lets her in, and he's again a little bit sort of diffident, and then they sit down at the table, and the conversation is fine. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but he sort of like he says something quite early on about like, "Oh, you look very nice," or something like that, and I'm just like, "Oh man, this is just it's too nice guy, it's too chody." And I mean, even in this little grab here, there's something sort of, how can I put it? There's something kind of subservient. Is that the right word? In the way that he's looking at her? I don't know. There's just a lack of dominance, I think. There's a sort of a slight pedestalization. I mean, look, I'm reaching a bit here because this is one screen grab and, take from it what you will. But just the way that he interacts with her is very much like, I'm in the presence of an attractive young girl. I better not, mess this up, or I better be really nice to her. Rollo says she's signaling housewife in this one. Well, what was interesting actually was that early on in the date, before I think he'd had the opportunity to really demonstrate his character, I think she was quite into it. Because as I say, she said, he's good looking, he's taller than me, he's more manly. And I think early on, the sense was, this is going to be the one that goes somewhere. Because she was kind of into him. On a physical level, she's probably like, yeah, he's good looking. He's a, high quality man. And so at this point in the dinner, she was kind of falling into his frame a bit, I think. She was certainly giving him a chance in the way that I don't think she gave certainly the first guy a chance. The first guy pretty much dead on arrival. Like, as soon as she rocks up and he's this dude, he's this nerd and he's like, oh, hello, do you like comics? It was game over. She was being polite and going through the motions, but there was no like traction there. Second guy, a little bit. This guy, I think she was falling into his frame because she's like, he's put together, he's older, he's kind of got that masculinity about him. I can get into this, all right? But as he demonstrates more of his character, she starts to become a bit less keen. But what happens is that in the end, she does pick him. Now, what happens is that they do the final dinner, say goodbye, whatever. And when he says goodbye to her, he's like, again, they film him. And he sort of says, physically she's pretty, but I don't know on a deeper level. I don't know on a deeper level if we're really suited. And I mean, to me, that just signals that he has a very, what we might call blue pill mindset, I suppose. Because really, I mean, come on, like, are you really thinking that long term as a guy at this stage? Are you really thinking, are we going to make a beautiful couple together? Seriously? I mean, don't you just want to take this as far as it can go first and then make up your mind? Because he says she's hot, she says she's attractive, but then he's like, yeah, but I don't know, on a deeper level, I don't know if there's that connection there. And I'm a bit like, oh, come on, man. Come on, seriously, man, for God's sake. You don't really mean that. But I suspect that that's his modus operandi in terms of the way that he thinks. And so therefore, probably that comes across in his behavior, and he's putting himself into the boyfriend zone by saying that, he's completely eradicating himself from the lover zone, because effectively, if you're trying to size up a woman in the sense of, oh, we're going to be good long-term partners, then you are just blatantly saying, I'm the provider, not the lover, aren't you? And that, I think, is the vibe that probably he's got across. Now, this girl describes herself as a business consultant. She has a professional career, et cetera, et cetera. Earlier on, I think the last guy asked her about her dating history. He said, when did you last date somebody? And she said, well, I haven't really dated somebody for quite a long time. I think it was like over a year. She said, I've just been like having fun. Now, listen, we know what that means. I don't have to spell it out, and I suspect that, like with most women, underneath the kind of good girl exterior, I suspect that she is somebody who likes to have a good time, and she is attracted to masculine guys who have that slightly caddish thing about them, that slightly roguish thing about them, that bad boy thing, that get her fired up. And, you've got Mr. Chody Chad here, who's sitting there thinking, but I wonder if on a spiritual level we are well matched. And, that is not the right frame to be going into this with. Now, she then, and anyway, selects him for the date. Now, I actually thought, I have to confess, I actually thought she might have selected the last guy. I thought maybe she's going to go for the wild card here, because I thought this guy had blown himself out of the water already for being too chody. But she goes on the date with him. She does select him. She goes on the date with him. And look, let's be upfront about this. He is the best looking of the three. He's, I think, the tallest of the three. He's what she describes as being the most manly of the three. So she does go with the guy that, if you looked at it on paper, you'd be like, okay, she's going to go for this dude. And this, of course, is the black pill narrative, isn't it? Because the black pill narrative is basically like, the black pill narrative is so facile, that we shouldn't even have YouTube channels to discuss this stuff. It's so basic. You could just write it on the back of a cigarette packet, and that will be it. I mean, the black pill concept is basically women just go for the best looking dude, and that's it. Okay, so on that level, they were right, because she picks him, and he's the best looking dude. However, what happens? Well, they go on the date, and you can see here she looks quite nice in this dress through the door. He's taller. They look quite good together. Oh, by the way, she bought him a rose, which is quite an ironic little touch. I think that's just a feature of the show, but she'd actually bought him a rose, which further put him into the symbolically sort of subservient position in this episode. But they go to the restaurant together, and they have drinks together, and he is just continuing in this slightly chody, slightly sort of subservient way. Like he's kowtowing to her a little bit. He's like, oh, well, you do look very nice, and all this kind of thing. And he's just, this dude, right? If he presented himself differently, if he came across differently, he could have had this. I don't think there's any issue with this. He could have had this. And I mean, you could even argue, somebody said looks like a tosser from the beginning. Well, I mean, if that's your opinion, I would say that if you look at how he's dressed, suit jacket is quite nice, but he could probably sharpen up the fashion a little bit. He looks a little bit sort of supply teacher in that, but nevertheless, well presented, etc., etc. But my contention is that this dude, because like I say, he's got the jawline, lads. If you're a jawline maxer watching this, he's got the jawline, hasn't he? He's got decent physique, decent shoulders. He's got the V taper. A lot of the stuff that, all these nerds go on about, he's got a lot of this stuff. So really, he should be able to get the girl. He should come out of this with a success. And what lets him down is his behavior, is the way that he puts himself across when when he meets her for the first time, and when he's on the date. Okay, so they have drinks and blah blah blah, and the conversation's all a little bit sort of like, nothing terrible. There's no big silences or anything like that, but it's a little bit sort of polite. It's a little bit stilted. It's a little bit kind of like, it's just there's no fire there. He doesn't flirt with her. He doesn't, create any sexual tension. He doesn't show dominance. He doesn't show his sexual intent or anything like that. And so what happens in the end? She has to decide whether she's going to see him again or not. And they do a little cutaway of her. And again, because my black pill radar had gone off, and I'm thinking, oh, they were right. She's chosen the good-looking guy, and now she's just gonna go home with him, and my whole life has been ruined. Because my whole fantasies of game working have been ruined. But they do a cutaway to her outside the restaurant, and she's basically, again, she's looking kind of awkward, and she says, well, he's nice guy. Yeah, we're getting on quite well. She says, I'm not sure how he feels about me. I'm not sure whether that he's attracted to me. And she says, I certainly would see him again, but I'm not sure in what capacity, which is basically code for friend zone. Friend zone. I would see him again. Yeah, he's a great guy. I'm not sure in what capacity. So what she's saying is that, it hasn't, her headlights haven't lit up. The flame hasn't been ignited. Okay, this dude hasn't done it for her, even though he's good looking, even though he's manly, even though he's tall, blah blah blah. Okay, so that's what she says at the end of the dinner, and then they do a little follow up afterwards with a text thing on the screen where they say what happened a month later. Now, as you might not be surprised to learn, the two previous guys a month later are still single. How does it work out for these two, this lovely pair, Ollie and the lovely Lydia? Do they make sweet love and go off and go and get a cabin in the woods in Montana and raise 12 children? No, they exchange numbers, but now they're just friends. Ba, ba, ba. So the point of all of that is, like I say, that dude really, he could have, if he'd have acted differently, he could have been successful with Lydia. I'm absolutely certain of it. There was nothing physically about him. I don't believe there was anything physically about him that prevented him from getting the girl. What did prevent him from getting the girl? Well, it was his game. I don't think they are. I think what that means is they're just friends. I think that means that they are not having sex. So yeah, it's a failure. If that was his goal, and I mean, really, why wouldn't that have been his goal, right? As much as a guy can say, yes, but on a spiritual level, how well are we matched? That it's fine to say that, but I mean, come on, man, really, is that what you wanted? Didn't you want to take things a bit further and see if you were compatible in that way before just knocking this one on the head? I mean, I don't really believe that. I think this is a guy who is diffident and who has trouble showing his sexual side. Do you know what I mean? I think he has trouble sexualizing interactions. He has trouble with sort of indicating to the women that he dates, what he wants, what the nature of the relationship is that he wants with them. And I think that he gets friend zoned as a result of that. And also, he's, as I say, diffident. He's a bit shy. He's not dominant. He pedestalized her to some degree. He's very polite and nice, but there's no spark. There's no there's none of that sort of bang. There's none of that. There's none of that thing, that makes it exciting, that lends it sexual tension. Okay. And that's what she's going to be looking for, because, you know, she's a young woman who has, you know, spent the last year and a half or so dating around, having a good time. We can only imagine, you know, what that's looked like. But my strong suspicion is, and disagree with me in the chat if you think I'm wrong, but my strong suspicion is that she is looking for that kind of roguish guy. She's looking for that cat. You know, she's looking for that slightly more bad boy kind of figure. And unluckily for her, and it was kind of random, so it's not her fault, but unluckily for her in this program, she didn't really get it with any of them, because all of them were kind of with the exception of the one in the middle, who I think actually has some promise, all of them were kind of a wet blanket, to be honest. Now, the good thing about the one in the middle, Arnie, was that he was quite cocky, you know, because then, like, at the end of the program, they show the winner and the girl going for their date, but they also show the two, like, losers. And that guy, so the first guy, Adam, you know, the guy who's like the nerd. Let's find his picture again for laughs. So this dude, Adam, right? They show him what they do at the end of the thing is they give them a microwave dinner. And they say, all right, as a consolation prize, you've got this microwave dinner. You can sit alone at home and eat the microwave dinner. Thanks, Rollo. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. That would really help me in terms of the algo for sure. He's sitting at home, sad, alone, and they're playing some sad music kind of as a joke. And they say to him, the interviewer says to him, so what are you going to do tonight? And he goes, oh, I don't know. I'll probably just eat this macaroni cheese and then maybe I'll go on some dating apps. and it's really, really sad. It's really sad. I mean, you know, I feel bad for the guy, because he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. And as I say, it's not even like he's a particularly bad looking guy. He's actually okay looking. It's just that he's presenting himself in a very bad way, in a very non-sexual way. And this, by the way, is, I think, the thread that goes through all of these three candidates. They don't portray themselves as being that bad boy sexual kind of character. Now, the one that would have been most successful at doing that was the one at the end. Because the one at the end, as she said, is the most manly. She's the oldest. He's the oldest. He's got that kind of masculine sort of grit about him. But this dude in the middle, this dude here in the middle, when I'll bring him in, sorry. This dude in the middle, right, when the episode finishes and they show him alone with the microwave meal, he kind of, they put the meal on a trolley outside the person's front door, and he opens the front door and sees the trolley, and then he looks up and down the corridor and he's like, what is there some mistake? And he's just literally like playing it like he can't believe that she hasn't chosen him. And then they cut to him sitting down being interviewed, and he's like, I seriously think there was some mistake, because I always get chosen. I can't believe she didn't choose me. Her loss, kind of thing. And look, to be fair, that's a pretty good response. Okay, it's better to be like that than to be like the first dude who's like, well, I'll just cry at home and go on Tinder and try and meet somebody else. You know, that is very, very bad frame. The second guy's actually got quite good frame, which is why I thought maybe she would actually pick him. As I say, she didn't. She went for the more like the sort of the default that you would expect, but she ends up friend zoning the default anyway, because he doesn't come across in the right way. And this is why game is so important. This is why you need to learn about sexual dynamics, the sexual marketplace, and how to navigate it with game or with dating skills. Because even if you are good looking, even if you do looks max, if you don't get this side of your character sorted out, then you are going to lose opportunities. Now, listen, I'm sure that Ollie is, you know, he's not going to become an incel. He's going to have opportunities, particularly since he's been on the show. I'm sure there were girls reaching out to him and wanting to date him and everything else. But he's got that blue pill mindset. He's got that, you know, he hasn't got that fire in him. He hasn't got that passion. He hasn't got that thing that is going to make these women fall at his feet. And a guy like that, who could be getting a lot of success in dating if he wanted to, is probably not getting very much success for that reason. So in regard to the whole black pill thing, it's like, yes, of course, looks make a difference. Yes, of course, you want to try and look as good as possible. You want to work out. You want to, you know, dress well. You want to groom yourself well, blah, blah, blah. But that is not the end of the story. And that, in many cases, you can get a good-looking guy who chodes himself out and doesn't get the girl, and a less good-looking guy who's got that kind of game persona about him will end up being successful with her. I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that in social situations I've been in. I've seen that with clients I've worked with, and guys just flat out don't believe this stuff, but it's true, I'm afraid. We've already seen today evidence of how a guy who is well put together and is good looking can still get blown out because he hasn't got that side of him. So that's why I bang on about this stuff. That's why I designed CAD Academy, Charisma and Dating Academy, to deliver my 3-part system, which is basically charisma plus attitude plus differentiation. Those are the things that create attraction. And when you understand those things, then you don't make the mistakes that Ollie made. You start to get more success because you're putting yourself across in a better, more sexy, let's face it, way. That's what it comes down to. All right. And when you start to be able to do that, then you will start to get wins where other people lose out. I mean, I've been in situations where I've managed to get girls that better looking guys have coveted and have not been successful with. How is that? Well, it's because of the way that I put myself across. Why do I do it like that? Well, because I understand the dynamics. Okay. And you can too. You can really, really change up this stuff in your own life for sure. So listen, if anybody has got questions or comments that you'd like to make, put them into the chat now and we'll go through them. This guy says the middle guy is Chad for sure. Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, the middle guy actually is good looking. He is also funny and he's also pretty cocky. I think you have to watch the episode to really get this, but he was quite... And to be honest, this isn't even always something that's going to make you fail, but he was quite camp. And I don't know whether in the final analysis, she kind of thought, I'll just go for this more manly dude. There was something slightly effete about the way that he presented himself. And like I say, to be honest, sometimes that can work. I mean, look at Russell Brand. Russell Brand was very camp. And he was certainly successful in the dating arena. So campness in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But I suspect on this particular occasion, she just kind of went, do you know what? This guy, a bit older, well put together, whatever, I'll go with him. But yeah, I think the middle guy was pretty Chad. And I imagine that he does pretty well because he's got the right attitude and he is decent looking. Who else have we got here? Dov says, How to Be an Arsehole. Awesome book. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that, Dov. Please do check it out. It's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon or you can get it in Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books. That's on the link below. Troy, are you going to cover Naked Attraction? Americans can't believe we have shows like that on normal TV. Is that the one? Is that the one where they actually get naked and they have to look at different parts of their body and then decide if they want to go with them or not? That's right, isn't it? I could cover that, I suppose. Funnily enough, somebody on Twitter earlier was saying that what about phallus size? Do you guys ever consider the size of somebody's member, because that makes a difference as well? And I sort of made a joke about it on Twitter, but I mean, I have to say, genitalia size is something I never touch on in my material, because I kind of think that, to be honest, by the time she finds out, you've already done the job anyway. So not done the job, I mean, but you've already made her attracted anyway. So it's sort of like, it's almost like a secondary thing. But yeah, we could cover Naked Attraction. That could be quite fun, although I may not be able to show all of the images in the same way. Hack says, if you rolled up as an ugly dork, it's okay. Just put points into speech as you level up. You got this. 100%, man. Listen, we've got to work from where we are, right? I mean, none of us are winning any male model competitions anytime soon. Well, certainly not on this channel. But you've got to work with what you've got, and you improve as much as you can. Do all the things that you you can do in terms of I do actually have a very small penis. Do all the things that that you should be doing in order to come across well. After that, you've kind of just got to let it go. And you've kind of just got to be like, all right, well, you know, now I'm going to put some of that dating dynamic stuff into play. And that's going to even up the score for you, definitely, 100%. What else have we got here? She dressed the hottest for him, though. That was fun. Which one do you mean? The first one or the last one? Let's see if there's anything else here. Anon says, for London, she's a 5. For Britain, overall, a 7.5. Yeah, I probably agree with that, to be honest. I mean, she is... she's certainly an attractive girl. I think she's one of those girls that would look very good when she was going out to the club or for her Instagram photos and things like that. I think she could look fantastic. Yeah, attractive girl, you know? I mean, I don't think any of these black pill people who are moaning all the time on the internet would turn her down, or they certainly shouldn't anyway. She is quite attractive. Did somebody say she's a 2? All right, Jerlin says she's a 2. I don't agree with that. I don't think she's a 2. I think a 5 is in London is more like it, or a maybe a 7.5. But listen, I mean, the thing is, the whole thing about, I mean, all girls look better with makeup. All girls look better. I mean, those pictures you're seeing on Instagram, you know, lots of makeup, good lighting. Oh, he's saying just kidding. Okay. She's quite old. She's not actually that old. She's about 23. I don't think that's really old. Yeah, you know, like when you look at those pictures on Instagram, you know, loads of makeup, good lighting. They take 1,000 pictures and choose one. Okay. So I think a girl like the one that we saw in those shots, I think that she would 100%, you know, look fantastic when she was ready to go to the club or out for dinner or to go to the restaurant or whatever. So yeah, but anyway, I mean, you know, like it's just an example. I'm not holding her up as being some sort of like aspirational figure. It was just an interesting example, I think, of how a guy who's got the looks and who really should have the confidence manages to fail in a dating scenario. And confidence is a funny thing, isn't it? Confidence is a preference. Because the black pill guys would say, yeah, but confidence is no good if you're 4'1" and you've got a limp and a hunchback. What about those guys? And the implication is that confidence is just going to magically appear. If you're good looking, you're confident because you're good looking. If you're not good looking, you're not confident because you're not good looking. You know, it's very black and white. It's not nuanced at all, you know? And of course, the real world is nuanced, as we all know. But you can see there a dude who does have the looks, who does have the height, who does have a decent physique, etc., is not confident, or at least he's not confident in the right way for dating. Yeah. And that's an important distinction. You can be confident in terms of being good at your job, you can chat to the guys at the pub or the bar, you can talk football, you know, all of those things. You might be confident in certain situations, but you've got to be confident in a fairly specific way, which pertains to dating. Otherwise, you can drop the ball. And what I noticed actually watching all 3 of those dates, having watched the whole episode, of course, in all of them, really, it was pretty clear that she was feeling a bit awkward. You know, there was a lot of her sort of going, yeah, he's a nice guy, but I'm not quite sure. And when guys on dates and in a situation where they first meet the girl, when guys do that slightly pedestalizing thing, when they sort of, even if it's subconsciously, they put themselves below her and her above them, girls pick up on that and they find it awkward, because what she's really looking for, I would conjecture, is a guy who's going to take control of the situation, a guy who's just going to be very smooth, very sort of like, I'm the guy here. This is how this is going, and give her a good time, give her a good date. Okay. And none of these guys really did that. All of these guys were slightly sort of butt kissing a little bit, and that is not a good look. That's not something that's going to, set her on fire by any means. And that's what we saw in this episode, Suleiman says, above is the latest Naked Attraction synopsis. Oh, here we go. 23-year-old Brian from Kent, who's a virgin and has no clue about sex. And 27-year-old Shida from London, who's feeling the pressure to settle down. What is this then? Sorry, is this the one where they see each other naked? They see parts of the body naked, and then they have to decide if they're going to go on a date or not. Is that the right show? What I'm thinking of. I thought she was a solid 6.5. She was slim and well dressed, nice hair too, which will always count for a lot. Yeah, I mean, look, numbering is subjective. I mean, I think she was attractive. I think that, as I say, I'm sure her Instagram is lit, if you know what I mean. I'm sure that she looks fantastic in pictures and things like that. I'm sure that she scrubs up very well, as we say in the UK. So yeah, she's an attractive girl, and but look, I mean, we don't need to particularly get so hung up on that. It's not really about how amazing she is. I mean, it's more to illustrate the way that the guys reacted to her and the way that the guys put themselves across. Forget the numbers, would you or not? All right, well, listen, okay, if you would, no, all right, we won't do this, we won't do that, I don't want to get banned, but yeah, she is a lovely lady. What else have we got here? Blah blah blah. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments on that? I think it was quite an interesting example. I mean, I think sometimes these reality shows can teach you things. I mean, like if you watch Love Island, that's quite interesting. The problem with Love Island is that everybody's good looking. So, and I did actually do some content about Love Island a couple of seasons back. I think it was the British one, or I was talking about it on Twitter. And of course, people will be like, for a start, people will be like, well, it's a reality show, so it's all made up. Which I don't think is really the case with a lot of these unscripted reality shows. I think what we saw in that program that I talked about today is genuine. I think that probably reflects her feel. I think of the guys, she probably would have chosen him out of them, and she probably wouldn't have seen him again because he was a little bit of a wet blanket, right? So I think that was that strikes me as being real. It doesn't strike me as being somehow manipulated. The other problem that you have with something like Love Island is, of course, pretty much everyone is jacked and good looking. Now, there are grades of distinction there because there are people who are better looking and more jacked than others. But perhaps it's a harder argument to make. But some reality shows are quite good just to get a sense of how people are. And even if you want to argue that the reality show has been edited in a particular way to make a certain point, or it's been scripted, it still reflects back what a lot of the audience is thinking, and the female audience as well. And so from that point of view, they're quite useful sometimes to watch just to get a sense of what's happening on the ground. EC Smooth says, the man from Kent who had such a big pecker it bent, so the same with the trouble, he bent it over double, and instead of coming, he went. It's nice that we can share a little bit of poetry on this show, I think. I think it's nice that we can bring some culture into this, because people will say, Troy Francis, it's all just about dating. There's no depth. There's no culture there. There's no art. Where's the art? Where's the beauty? And looking at that, it's just good that we can share a little bit of culture. We can share a little bit of poetry. Maybe we can do some iambic pentameters next time about wanking or something. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you very much for that, Mr. EC. Loop says Love Island is too scripted. I don't know, man. I mean, who knows? I think the thing about Love Island is I'm not sure if it's scripted exactly, but I do sometimes think that they set up scenarios. So they kind of push the contestants into certain things to give it a bit of drama. So I think in that sense, you might be right. But I think there are still lessons to be learned. But anyway, I mean, really, fundamentally, right, we're not here to talk about reality TV. The whole point of all of this is that when the black pill guys say that it's all about looks, they are wrong, because while looks help, that is not the only thing. You need to learn the other stuff as well. You need to learn how to be effective as a man who goes on a lot of dates. You know, you need to be effective when you are dealing with women, when you're dealing with members of the opposite sex. You've got to be a guy who knows how to spark that attraction. Now, of course, it's not going to happen every time. Let's be clear about that. You know, it's not that you can just learn, you know, my system or anybody's system really, and then you're just going to rock up and every date's going to be, she's going to fall at your feet. Of course, it doesn't necessarily work like that. But, you know, as you start to learn some of these techniques, as you start to learn the triggers that you can be pulling, you're certainly getting success more times than you would be otherwise. And, you know, we see a very unfortunate story with a guy like Ollie, good guy, well put together, decent looking, etc., who drops the ball on the date and doesn't get a second chance. And this is the thing, guys. You know, you really only get one chance. Or maybe two chances. That guy had two chances. You know, he met her on the first date. She agrees to a second date. Okay. But then it's not going to go any further than that. And it's very, very unlikely that they will ever see each other again. Because once you've had your chance, if you've messed it up, then, you know, you're gone. You're out of her phone. You're out of her list of considerations, and that's it. Because look, we know what the modern dating marketplace is like. We know how competitive it is. We know how often she's being hit up by other dudes, etc. That girl there, even though somebody's saying she's a 2 or a 6.5 or whatever, you could bet your life that her Tinder is on fire, and probably her Instagram's on fire as well, and Bumble and whatever else she's on. Okay. She has plenty of opportunities, okay? So she doesn't need to go back to Ollie. She doesn't need to, in 2 weeks' time, go, maybe I should have given that guy another chance. After all, he was quite good looking. After all, he did jaw max. Maybe I should give him another chance. She doesn't need to do that, because already she's got another 10 dates lined up, or she's dating another 3 guys or whatever, right? So here's the thing, and this is what I teach in CAD Academy. You need to give yourself the best possible chance in real life, in the moment, to make something happen, okay? To ignite attraction. And attraction is ignited through charisma plus attitude plus differentiation, okay? When you get those things down, when you know how to use those things, very powerful tools, you will be sparking more attraction with these women. And if you fail to do that, you will be missing out on opportunities like Ollie did, and you will never see those girls again. So if that's what you want your fate to be, then fine. But if you want to learn how to ignite attraction in real life, in the moment, because we're all sitting behind our screens all the time now, but you've got to be able to turn it on in a social situation. It's not going to work every time. But practice, use the principles, and you're going to find it works more often than not. Then you need to stay tuned to this channel, because we'll be talking more about CAD Academy, which is coming out on the 1st of December. The enrollment period will be for 5 days. We're looking to cap it at 100 students. So places are limited as well. And you've got 5 days to enroll from the 1st until the 5th of December. So I will be putting out more information about that and about the course and so on and so forth over the next, couple of weeks up until the 1st of December. In the meantime, if you want to learn more, make sure you get on my email list. I've got a daily free email list, goes out every day, 6 p.m. EST. I write a little essay, little article about some aspect of dating or whatever, game, dating dynamics. The link is below in the description. So get onto that. It's absolutely free. And you will be the first to hear news about CAD Academy and just other stuff that I'm doing in general, really. So do get on that. I try to stuff in as much value as I can. There's a few people in the Twitter sphere who do daily emails. I think I'm one of the few now in this sort of dating arena. So it's really worth your while just to get on it. As I say, there's no obligation. It's free. You just get an email from me every day. If you want to ignore them, you can. If you want to read some of them, then do. And that's it, really. So listen, Nico says, I lived the simp life before and it was brutal. The simp life is brutal. And then Jimbo says, black pill. is the truth? Well, kind of, sort of. It's sort of part of the truth, but it's a very unnuanced way of looking at the truth. I mean, truth is subjective in the most part. You know, people have different truths depending on their experiences and the way that they live their lives. And the black pill certainly isn't my truth, because I've seen far too many things that just go completely against the central tenets of the black pill. And I'm not saying that all black pill content creators are unintelligent hacks, but you have to look at the spelling and the grammar and the nonsense that, you know, when I get comments from black pill people, they're almost always poorly written, poorly constructed, ad hominem, bad grammar, bad spelling. And a lot of these black pill dudes, you know, like they spend most of their time, because the black pill argument is so reductive, because there's really nothing to say beyond looks matter. All these black pill dudes do is just take pot shots at everybody else. You know, they've got nothing. There's nothing else. They've got nothing else, which is really, you know, a pretty sad state of affairs. There's not much, and they will say, yeah, well, we look at research and, you know, we research carefully and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of what they're using is data from the dating apps. And anybody who's done any in real life approach, anyone who's done any daytime approach will know that the dating apps offer a very skewed picture of what women do and don't find attractive. I mean, yeah, sure. If you're a girl and you're doing a survey for Tinder and it's like, well, you know, do you like the hot Jack guy or do you like the less hot Jack guy? Of course they're going to say the hot Jack guy. Yeah, of course. I mean, like, it's a no-brainer because Tinder is and the dating apps are primarily a visual medium. So you are judged primarily on your looks. Well, that's why some dating coaches, not me so much, but some dating coaches say just don't use the apps. Just approach in real life, because when you approach in real life, you automatically get 2 or 3 extra points on top of whatever your score is in the first place. And pretty much everybody that you speak to, whether they're a client, whether they are whether they are a dating coach, just friends of mine, people that I know, I mean, people that I've worked with, pretty much everybody will attest to the fact that you just get better results when you approach in real life. This is almost universal, as far as I can see. Guys get better results when they approach in real life than they do on the dating apps. So the data that comes from the dating apps is necessarily skewed towards the visual, which helps to support the black pill argument, but it doesn't reflect what happens in the real world. And this is a really important point that you guys need to understand and to internalize. Okay, most of the data that they're using is really not valid when you look at real life interactions, and that's an important distinction to be made. Okay. RSD Tyler had Dawkes and Black Pillars argue with him. He didn't bother. Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, I'm just doing it for the clickbait, really. I'm not that bothered. Brian says dating apps are brutal. Well, no, I'm doing it. Actually, sorry, I should say I'm doing it for the clickbait, but I'm also doing it because I think there is an important message to be got across here. And I think that, guys do need to understand that what they're being fed by these people is not the full picture by any means. Okay. And to be frank, if you've ever stepped outside your house, you would know that. You just have to look around and see real life people interacting in real life. I mean, going off some data from Tinder or from Bumble, it doesn't really give you the real picture. Brian says, dating apps are brutal. They're not the whole picture, though. I don't use them. I'm getting over approach anxiety by doing multiple day game approaches. Yes, and you will find that the results you get from doing that will be better. I mean, certainly that's my experience. I mean, I've had some success on the apps. I mean, I met, I've met various girls on Tinder and different things in the past, but the quality, if you like, of the women that I've met through real life approaching has been far higher. than anybody I've met on the apps, and that I think is a universal. So really, what you want to be doing is, rather than buying into the narrative, you want to be thinking, okay, right, so I'm going to get myself into that kind of good shape where I can go and approach and I can make things happen. Not spending hours and hours a day doing it or anything like that, but just like when you're going about your everyday business, you see somebody you're attracted to, you're able to go up and be your authentic self and be open and honest and non-manipulative and just walk up and say, hey, listen, you look really nice, wanted to come and talk to you, right? It's the most natural thing in the world. And guys, I think that I'm a different generation, but I think that what we're seeing in the last couple of generations is that people are less and less used to doing this because we're all seeing behind screens. That's not a good place to be. Great analysis, Troy. Thank you very much. Tinder is full with bots these days, not even attractive girls anymore. Deezy says, have you seen James Tusk approach? Do you vouch for him? I vouch for him, yes. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't think I've actually been present when he's approached in real life, but he's the real deal. I mean, I've met him a couple of times now. I've worked with him on a couple of things. He's a good guy. He's the real deal. He knows what he's talking about. So yes, I do vouch for him. And, he's invited me to go and do some more work with him overseas potentially. So watch this space. Let's see what happens with that if we're ever allowed off the pleasure island of England again. Misanthropy says, don't be yourself if you're cringy with flat personality. That is true. That is true. Don't be yourself. I mean, be yourself, but you've got to be an amped up version of yourself. You've got to be a good version of yourself. And again, I'm sorry for all the plugs, but that's what I teach in CAD Academy. This is about finding out what you want to project to the world and then the best way in which to project that. Because you've got to stand out. This is the problem. That's the problem with that bloody guy, that Ollie guy that we were talking about in that program. I mean, nice guy and everything, a little bit normie, right? Not much pizzazz. Now, actually, the second guy who she didn't pick, actually, he was a little bit more differentiated. He had a bit more of a vibe about him. And I suspect that will do him very well. He didn't get picked on that particular episode, but I reckon in real life, that guy is seeing more action probably than Ollie. I think of England more as Love Island, to be honest. Yeah, absolutely. I tend to be going out topless a lot just to enjoy that Love Island vibe. I look good. I was a virgin till 26. Tall, muscular, good looking. People tell me regularly I look like a movie star or compliment my height and size. Well, that's an interesting story. And he says, yeah, I don't slay. Well, is it something to do with the way that you're coming across? I mean, like, is it the way that you're putting yourself across when you're interacting with these women? Again, that's why I showed this example today. You're probably better looking than this Ollie guy. But that's an example of a guy who, while being acceptably good looking, I would have thought in the eyes of anybody really, managed to mess it up. It's possible to mess it up, Looks help, they get your foot in the door, but they are not the full story, regardless of what anybody says. Eamon says, I've stopped using the apps, prefer real life. Good stuff. So Jesse says, I think it's not the looks, but the energy a man irradiates. And I would agree with that. The problem with using the word energy is that it's been hijacked somewhat by very hippie-ish people who are like, yeah, man, it's all about vibes and energy. And then you're like, okay, so can you break that down a bit? What does that actually mean? And then they just don't answer because they don't know. So energy is a somewhat overused term in some sectors of the internet today. But I would agree. I do agree. I think it is the energy that you put out that really makes a difference. Deezy says, I enjoy your app and collaborations with James. Far too much red pill married and no receipts. Big ups on your hustle, infield and receipts. Thank you very much. So I appreciate that. Right, misanthropy. The best way I fixed some of my social dysfunctions was to force myself into uncomfortable or awkward scenarios until the feeling no longer bothers you. Yeah, 100%. That's what you have to do. That's what I did. I was like hopeless in social situations, and I'm still fundamentally an introvert. Like the thought of going to a party with like 100 people there doesn't fill me with joy, but I can do it because I forced myself into so many awkward and uncomfortable situations over the years, including doing many, many thousands of approaches as well, tens of over 10,000 approaches. I'm able to negotiate those social spaces now, but you have to keep banging away at it. You really do. So in terms of Alfonso, talking to people, getting into at least one situation a day that's slightly outside your comfort zone. It doesn't even have to be with a woman. It could be with a guy. It could be like speaking to people that you don't know and forcing yourself to make it work. And if it doesn't work, well, don't worry, just walk away. You will get better. Is David D'Angelo's material dated or still viable? I probably somewhat dated, but it's always interesting to look back on these things. Anon says, great work, Troy. Peace, everyone. The show with Tusk was solid stuff. What will be the prices for CAD Academy? So the price is going to be $497. So I'm holding the same price as last time. I was going to put it up, but given the continuing global pandemic situation and everything else, I'm going to keep it at $497. For that, you get the 10 hours worth of video content, plus in-field videos with me actually doing demos of this stuff in real life. And then you get the week's worth of webinars. So we do 10 webinars where I will break down those infill videos, show you exactly how it's done, coach you, work with you on your own game, etc., etc. So it is a great package, as she said, for that $497. Tell unfunny jokes in front of 30 people to train yourself to not be cringy. Absolutely. Well, I tell unfunny jokes in front of the whole internet, and that works. If the girl is into you in the club and you want to close, do you go straight forward and tell her to go with you to your place? It depends on the situation, really, and how on it appears to be. Of course, you remember the good old days when we used to be allowed to go to nightclubs and things. Seems like a distant memory now, doesn't it? You can do. It kind of depends on the situation, really. You can also then do, RSD always used to recommend having a buffer. So you would they always used to recommend going for food, which I actually think is a kind of a bad idea. But it's quite nice if there's somewhere else open just to go to have that sort of like little in-between space. But if you're getting on well and the vibe is right, then yeah, for sure. You need to just have some sort of reason to go back. So you might say, oh, this is an amazing movie that I was talking about. I've got to show it to you. I've got to show you my videos from when I was in South America. It'll only take half an hour. I've got to go to bed early anyway, so just come over. I've got to play the guitar, blah, blah, blah. You've got to give that sort of like reason. But yeah, for sure. Why not? So Scorn says, do you have any tips for not getting caught on the back foot when you get a random IOI? He means indicator of interest. That is when the lady looks at you in a manner that suggests that she is interested in you and she'd like to get to know you. It's quite easy to get caught on the back foot with these because it often happens when you're sort of charging around and busy and you're not necessarily in that sort of mindset. So I think you have to be forgiving of yourself if you kind of walk past and then you suddenly you think, oh, she looks at me. Wow, she looks at me. I should have said something. You can then just turn tail and go around and and tap her on the shoulder and say, listen, I nearly walked past them, but I saw the way that you looked at me. I had to just come over and say hi because you look really nice and I wanted to get to know you. My name's Troy. You can do that. That's absolutely fine to do. Obviously, make sure you're COVID secure when you're doing it, etc. But you know what I mean? Like under normal circumstances, that's absolutely fine to do. It's a very normal human thing to initiate a conversation with somebody, particularly if they've smiled at you. That's fine. Obviously, if she then sort of looks confused or she doesn't seem to be into it, like, oh well, listen, sorry, I just wanted to say hi. Have a great day. Then you walk off. Absolutely fine. It's being, a lot of this stuff is really just about being normal to a large degree. It's about being like a normal human being and acting in a sort of a normal way, and being calibrated. And like I say, being authentic with yourself, and this is why the whole manipulation thing is just such a load of nonsense that gets talked about in regard to dating advice. Because it's not about manipulation. It's about putting yourself in front of enough people in the right way that you start to get some success. That's what it comes down to. It's not about manipulation. There's nothing, you can't really manipulate somebody to like you when they don't like you. It's just, it just doesn't really work. Modern life dating is greater than mystery. Well, absolutely. John is the man for sure. Nightclubs are bad places to meet women. Yeah, there are arguments to and fro, but I know what you're saying. Practicing public speaking is really good. Toastmasters. I've never done Toastmasters. Maybe I should, with all the ums and the ahs. But I haven't. But people always say it's good, so that's, I'm sure, something that's worth looking into. Okay, guys, listen, I'm going to have to bring it to a close there, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think it was good to go through that TV show, just to give you an example. It's an illustration more than anything, just to show you what I'm talking about. But just bear in mind, looks great. They'll get you in the door. They won't necessarily get you into the bedroom once you're through the door. And in order to achieve that, you need to get better at social interactions, and social interactions specifically as they pertain to dating. And that's what CAD Academy is for. So join CAD Academy. It's $497. It opens on the 1st of December. We'll have a 5-day enrollment period from the 1st to the 5th of December. 100 guys only. So it's space limited as well. But I'll be sending out more information on that in the near future. Get on my email list. The link is below. That's free. Send out a free email every day. There'll be news and stuff in that as well. And beyond that, just keep watching this channel. Tune in tomorrow. We might be doing something slightly different tomorrow because I might be out and about. So there might be a little bit of a slightly different format tomorrow. But I will be doing something at 4:30 p.m. UK time. That's 11:30 a.m. EST time tomorrow. So tune in for that. And beyond that, I will see you again. Thanks, DZ. Hair never out of place. 10 game, 100%. Thanks, sir. Cheers, Sir Scorn. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers, Know Your Worth. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Oh, actually, we've got one question here from Ace, who says, what do you think about using direct verbal game, using kinky and erotic dirty talk to get women aroused in day game? I would say proceed with caution. If you watch videos that I've done, you will see that sometimes I go too far and the girl is into it for a bit and then she's like, oh my God. And then you have to sort of pull it back in. If you are unused to doing naughty talk like that, it can be I would advise against it because it's something that's very easy to get wrong. But what is important in an approach, whether it's in the daytime or the nighttime or wherever, is to create a subtext of erotic tension. Okay. And one of the ways of doing that is dirty talk. So I think you have to be very careful, particularly in day game. But if you can sort of imply it, I mean, what I do a lot is use double entendres and sort of imply it, make little jokes, little winks, not winks, but little like raising the eyebrows and, oh, you seem like a bad girl, that kind of thing. That gets the message across without being crude. And you don't want to be crude. You want to be a suave, sophisticated English gentleman like me. See you next time, Dov. See you next time, Eamon. Thanks, Hack. Go Scorched Earth, 100%. I don't like to go for girls in my class because of social circle. What do you think? If you can, it's always better to meet girls outside your social circle. So 100%, man. If you can do that, that's great. Thanks, Alfonso. Cheers, man. Know Your Worth. Great show. Cheers, mate. And Gerard, good to see you on the stream. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great evening and drop me a line, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. With any questions or comments, leave them below. Actually, leave a comment below. That will really help me out with the algo as well. Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.